There are many ways to look at things. And while there's often some truth in the way we see something, when we look, we tend to see what we want to see. A king has a man in the dungeon of his palace. That man keeps preaching that living out God's will means living in mercy and justice, but the king, who's from a long line of kings, sees things the way a king sees them. He believes following the will of God means listening to him. When we look at something, we tend to see what we want to see. Then one night this king, this Herod, watches his beautiful niece dance. He feels his blood boil and he makes a tragic mistake. This story, this sad story, is one of the greatest stories of all time. It is told and retold time and again in music, art, dance, theater, film. It is the story of a king seeing things the way he wants to see them. John the prophet had come to proclaim the coming of Christ. The truth is, John proclaims the gospel, the message of Jesus before Jesus. When we hear him say, "Whoever has 2 coats must share with anyone who has none, and whoever has food must do likewise," or hear him tell tax collectors, "Collect no more than the amount prescribed for you," or tell Roman soldiers, "Be satisfied with just your wages," you feel like you're listening to Jesus. And as Jesus was a social revolutionary in a very male-centered, terribly tribal world, fighting for the recognition that all people are important, that women are important, that children should be cherished, John echoed that by proclaiming that the only way to properly live for God was to also live for your neighbors. And John's fiery take on life had indeed landed him in prison because, as he saw it, Herod's sin of taking his brother's wife was also a sin against God. Of course, Herod, raised in that tradition of the king's way is God's way, held to a very different view of things. And so he locked this freaky, animal skin wearing, locust munching holy man away. A very different vision, and yet there was something about this guy. Something even a king hungry for power couldn't quite shake. There was something about John and these things that he said that Herod kind of loved. It's very human to see things the way we want to see them. And the truth is, most of us manipulate our surroundings whenever possible to avoid having to see them another way. I'm guessing most of us watch just one news channel, or just read the work of certain authors, or only explore our favorite websites. We tend to surround ourselves with people who are like us or who even just look like us. And by the way, I'm not bashing anybody. This is human nature. Go to a typical college cafeteria. You're probably going to see the black kids sitting together, the white kids all sitting together, the kids from China all sitting together. It's human nature. But a lot of it is not good. We tend to see things the way we do. We tend to want to keep seeing them that way, and Herod was no exception. Herod putting John in the slammer, it's a lot like us picking up the remote control and clicking to a new channel. This guy was saying stuff that was irritating him, making him doubt his vision of things, and so click. Or more appropriately, click. It solved Herod's problem for a time. It allowed him to metaphorically wipe the smudge of John off of his glasses so that he could see the world as he wanted to see it. For his brother's wife, however, now his wife, Herodias, it was not enough. And so she made ready her forces, including her daughter, the one history calls Salome. Seeing things our way usually allows us to maintain our comfort level, our advantages in life. Unfortunately, our views are often flawed, self-centered, and to use that churchy word for it, sinful. Part of why this story is so riveting, so heart-wrenching, so instructive is we see eventually our vision of how life is supposed to be can fall apart, resulting in destruction of others, of us. The foolish old king thinks he's in control. He thinks John is safely tucked away, Herodias is under his thumb, and all that is left for him to do is to invite his guests, feast, and ask that music be played for his birthday. But when the young girl dances and his blood boils and he becomes consumed with his passion, he gets beaten at his own game. The trap set by mother is sprung by daughter, and John's head is on a platter. The way Herod sees the world, it results in embarrassment, destruction, death. Maybe the greatest task of faith, of spiritual practice, is to get a person, to get us, past the way we see things and to the way God sees things. But it's not easy, because God's way is not what the world teaches. Think about it. What does the world teach us to value? Money, possessions, momentary pleasure, physical beauty, power, the perfect, glamorous Facebook/Instagram-ready life? Think about it. What does the world teach us to value? And then think of Jesus. Money? He depended on others to live day to day. He said the Son of Man has no place to lay his head. Possessions? He died on a cross while soldiers gambled, arguably, for his one possession, the robe he wore. Momentary pleasure? Sure, Jesus laughed and feasted, but he saw this as a sign of God's eternal reign of love. Physical beauty? Physical beauty is a wondrous thing in God's creation. But Jesus took a crown of thorns. Power? Mostly displayed in weakness. A perfect life? Well, maybe that. But our world does not characterize homelessness or crucifixion as glamorous or as success. The point is, while these things the world teaches us to value are not all bad, and while we certainly need some of them, try living without money, God doesn't see the world with the lens we do. And when we learn to see the world through the lens of the holy, we start to glimpse things differently. We start to glimpse what's really important. Leave here today. Listen. Leave here today understanding something. You are beyond precious. You are a beautiful creation of God. You have God within you, for we are children of the Holy Parent. We flail, we fail, we disappoint ourselves and each other. We eventually get old and broken down, and we can look back at life and see all the places we could have done better, but none of that changes the fact that we are God's and beyond precious. Leave here today understanding something else. All that is true of you is true of everyone, including those we would call enemies. It's true of every being that takes breath on this planet, and true even of the planet itself. If we can hold on to this knowledge, if we can keep this knowledge before us, We can start to see like God sees. We can start to hold on to the fact that we are all connected and precious in God. We can start to understand our value and the value of others, and it will change us. This will change us because this knowledge that we are all precious and connected in God is a lot more important than what the world says is important. It will change us in what we do and in what we want to become. It will help us to grow and become truly a blessing to this world. And we will still screw up. Plenty. But the change will be real. And our eyes will start to see clearly.